China's population is about to shrink for the first time since the Great Famine struck 60 years ago, and here's what it means for the world. This is by Chi Yuan Peng on The Conversation, Creative Commons here. The world's biggest nation is about to shrink. China accounts for more than 1/6 of the world's population, yet after 4 extraordinary decades in which China's population has swelled from 660 million to 1.4 billion, its population is on track to turn down this year for the first time since the Great Famine of 1959 to 1961. According to the latest figures from China's National Bureau of Statistics, China's population grew from 1.41212 billion to just 1.41260 billion in 2021, a record low increase of just 480,000, a mere fraction of the annual growth of 8 million or so common a decade ago. While a reluctance to have children in the face of strict anti-COVID measures might have contributed to the slowdown in births, it has been coming for years. China's total fertility rate, births per woman, was 2.6 in the late 1980s, well above the 2.1 needed to replace deaths. It has been between 1.6 and 1.7 since 1994 and slipped to 1.3 in 2020 and just 1.15 in 2021. By way of comparison, in Australia and the United States, the total fertility rate is 1.6 births per woman. In aging Japan is 1.3. This has happened despite China abandoning its one-child policy in 2016 and introducing a 3-child policy backed by tax and other incentives this year. Sorry, we just had an earthquake in Greece and the whole building shook. Okay, we just had a 2.8 earthquake right in my neighborhood. So that's why I felt it. Now, going back to this, theories differ about why Chinese women remain reluctant to have children in the face of state incentives. One involves having become used to small families. Another involves a rising cost of living. Another involves increasing marriage age, which delay births and then dampens the desire to have children. In addition, China has fewer women of childbearing age than might be expected, limited to having only one child since 1980. Many couples opted for a boy, lifting the sex at birth ratio from 106 boys for every 100 girls. The ratio in most of the rest of the world is 120, and in some provinces 130. Shrinking on reasonable assumptions, China's total population grew by a post-famine low of just 0.34 in 1,000 last year. Projections prepared by a team at the Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences have it falling this year for the first time post-famine by 0.49 in 1,000. The turning point has come to a decade sooner than expected. As recently as 2019, the China Academy of Social Sciences expected the population to peak in 2029 at 1.44 billion. The 2019 United Nations Population Prospects Report expected the peak still later in 2031 to 32 at 1.46 billion. The Shanghai Academy of Social Sciences team predicts an annual average decline of 1.1% after 2021, pushing China's population down to 587 million in 2100, less than half of what it is today. The reasonable assumption behind that prediction are that China's total fertility rate slips from 1.15 to 1.1 between now and 2030 and remains there until 2100. The rapid decline will have a profound impact on China's economy. China's working age population peaked in 2014 and is projected to shrink to less than a third of that peak by 2100. And China's elderly population, age 65 and above, is expected to continue to climb for most of that time, passing China's working age population near 2080. Older and much less young, This means that while there are currently 100 working age people available to support every 20 elderly people, by 2100, 100 working age Chinese will have to support as many as 120 elderly Chinese. The annual average decline of 1.73% in China's working age population sets the scene for much lower economic growth. Unless productivity advances rapidly, higher labor costs driven by the rapidly shrinking labor force are set to push low-margin, labor-incentive manufacturing out of China to labor-abundant countries such as Vietnam, Bangladesh, and India. Already manufacturing labor costs in China are twice as high as in Vietnam. More caring, less manufacturing. At the same time, China will be required to direct more of its productive resources to provision of health, medical, and aged care services to meet the demands of an increasingly elderly population. Modeling by the Center of Policy Studies at Victoria University suggests that without changes, China's pension system, its pension payments will grow fivefold from 4% of GDP in 2020 to 20% of GDP in 2100. For a resource exporting nations such as Australia, these changes are likely to require a reorientation of exports towards manufacturers outside China. For importers of goods, including the United States, the source of goods is set to gradually shift towards new and emerging centers of manufacturing. Despite forecasts that this will be the Chinese century, these population projections suggest influence might move elsewhere, including to neighboring India, whose population is expected to take over China within this coming decade. This is by The Conversation. Please leave your comments. Thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.